Welcome to the podcast. This is the Citizens of Earth podcast. Today we'll be interviewing Christopher Roberts. We'll be talking a bit about spirituality, among other things. Sorry, bit of a frog in my throat there. So why don't you do it? Tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you've been up to.
Yeah, seems like a logical first start. Yeah, where to start? Just I guess a little bit about me. My journey started pretty early. Went through some, not too uncommon, unfortunately, some kind of early childhood trauma. Developed a pretty strong social anxiety disorder and depression, which later turned into addiction issues and all these things, and really started me on a path of kind of forced me on a path of just digging deeper, really being motivated by wanting to figure out answers of how to heal myself or how to unscramble my brain, however you want to put it, because I was probably, geez, I don't know, 7 or 8, and basically overnight developed a really intense anxiety disorder. And so for a long time, I really felt like it defined me, but also was the catalyst for me, being a seeker and fortunately had a kind of a spontaneous spiritual event happen in high school that really also kind of guided me and kind of shot me in the right direction. But yeah, I think I spent probably almost 20 years kind of sitting in that pain and in that trauma before I started kind of getting to the root of how to heal it. And so, what basically my message is, I think there's a lot of people in a similar situation, obviously through the lens of their own life circumstances, but
Yeah.
you could spirituality and law of attraction and all these things, and it's great, and I find a lot of value in those things, but it really wasn't until I learned how to operate at the energy level, which kind of sounds weird and out there, and that's basically what I'm trying
Mhm.
to educate people on at this point, that my life actually really started to change. So my anxiety, once I was able to kind of realize, oh, I can let go and release this energy in my space and
Mhm.
start to address it. People know about chakras and auras and stuff, but they don't really know how to tap into it. But as I began to address these things at the energy level, my anxiety got better. I was in my mid 20s, still had terrible acne, which haunted me, of course. And so my acne started healing, and shortly after that, I was able to start a career, which otherwise, I was, a couch surfer and homeless multiple times in my 20s, just because I was such a mess emotionally and psychologically.
Mhm.
So for me, it was, yeah, it was a crucial turning point. And at this point, I see people every day, on various social media platforms primarily, who are going through similar things. And
Mhm.
people are realizing, oh, what's an empath? Like, I feel like I'm an empath, and they resonate with these concepts, but there's just no tools out there. People just don't know that, you know, from my perspective, we're all much more powerful than we realize. And
Yeah.
just with a little bit of insight of how to leverage some of our innate spiritual abilities, we can do some massive things. So
Mhm.
that's my message. And I've just kind of gotten started, and looking to help as many people as I can. Really, that's what I'm doing.
Nice. What is it? What do you mean by the term seeker? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So it really makes me think of, your the what they call, the hero's journey, right? So you
Mhm.
see the hero's journey in basically any movie you watch. Any good story has this sort of, you know, unwitting hero who doesn't really even want to go on the journey, right?
Mhm.
They have other plans for themselves, and they're thrusted in upon this circumstance of this world, which kind of forces them to take this journey. So, yeah, as a
Mhm.
kid, I didn't want to have to study freaking, you know,
Mhm.
whatever philosophy. I mean, I was interested in it, but I wanted to be a kid, but was kind of thrusted into this path of like needing to find an answer
Mm.
I mean, because I knew that, I had tried different things. My mom wanted to take me to therapy. I didn't want to be in therapy. Pulled the wool over the eyes of the therapist, but therapy probably would have actually been beneficial for me at the time. But yeah, just that inherent internal motivation
Mm.
to search, right? You have a motivation to kind of get outside of your comfort zone and seek answers, right?
Mm.
And I think that there's a lot of, with all the changes happening in the world, I think a lot of people are, especially with COVID, a lot of people are, their worlds are getting kind of shaken up,
Yeah,
and
that's
they're
for
being
sure.
forced into kind of, digging deeper and looking for some answers that are going to address the problems they're facing. So whether it's an
Mm.
anxiety disorder or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, it's certainly made people think about their priorities and stuff, and just it's flipped the world on its head, and given a lot of people a lot of anxiety and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the anxiety seems to be pretty clearly prevalent. And
Mm.
so, yeah, kind of like, I tend to start with focusing on, like, let's heal your past, your trauma, because there's a lot of trauma people have. But I think also understanding that, I think that most people have had the experience of walking into a room and,
Mm.
maybe there's a couple of people in the room and they were fighting, or maybe you go the other direction. Maybe they were fighting, or maybe they were laughing, and they walk in the room and they didn't hear anything of the conversation, but you can kind of feel the vibe of the room, like,
Yeah.
it's I can cut the tension with the knife type of
Mm.
kind of situation. And so I think that more and more people are realizing, like, okay, I'm really sensitive to whatever,
Mm.
is in the air here, and they're affected by it. And so to take that a step further, no, my dog wants to bark. No, take that a step further. I truly believe that that's the case on a larger level. So as the chaos of the world amplifies,
Mm.
the parts of us that are not necessarily in balance or sorted out, we're going to feel that discord, or we could actually even actually really kind of start to match that chaotic energy of the world. And so, I think it's all the more important to know how to kind of ground, find your center, find your space, and make your own personal bubble clean and clear and balanced and healthy. And you can navigate the world in a much more effective, way.
Yeah, definitely. um what where have you taken your ideas from, like Buddhism or um which where did these ideas come from originally?
Yeah. So, I mean, on one hand, that's a great question. On one hand, I do talk about how it wasn't really until I learned these very specific tools that things began to change, but everything leading up to that had its merits and its value, right? So, like, I spent,
Mm.
geez, I think from the time I was 17 until I met my mentor, it's almost a decade of learning, anything I can get my hands on. I mean, I resonated with a
Mm.
lot of different things. So psychology, even to this day, I use a lot of, and I'm still a student of Carl Jung. So Jungian psychology,
Oh, nice. Mm.
shadow work is becoming more popular,
Mm.
in the community, and people are becoming interested in that. I think that has a lot of value. So yeah, I would say that, Jungian psychology, I really resonated with a lot more Eastern philosophies. So
Mm.
Taoism, I definitely, read some on Buddhism. I wouldn't consider myself a Buddhist or a Taoist, however.
Mm.
Um, but and then also, I really liked what a lot of people would consider, more esoteric, kind of fringe stuff. So, there's
Mm.
material out there, people channeling other entities, and it's really kind of out there. And some of it's great. I do think that we all kind of have we resonate with things that have certain levels of truth to them. Always is kind of a wheat from chaff situation, but yeah, a lot of just the metaphysical teachings from people, just even channeling stuff was, again, it's really kind of out there, and I think probably the average person would kind of consider it woo woo crazy, maybe even, but a lot of really interesting, at the very least, concepts and ideas in there. But as far as what I teach, it's really nothing I developed myself. There are specific tools that were developed by those that came before me. I just tend to leverage them in my own unique way. So again, yeah, I think Jungian psychology is one of those larger lenses that I like to use because it integrates so well with this stuff. And just, there's a lot of power, and everyone in the spiritual community is all love and light and all these things. But I think a lot of times there's two sides of that coin, right? And so bringing light to the darkness is, and digging into that darkness is a crucial part of the path.
I guess you can't really have light without darkness, as they say.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like experiences with like synchronicity and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, especially dabbling with, you start to study the law of attraction, and I think a lot of people might have some short wins, like when getting parking spots and stuff like that. But I've far from mastered the law of attraction. But once you go down that path and you stick with it, you start to have certain experiences that are just unexplainable. I mean, I still to this day have a friend who he's very science minded and oriented, and very hard facts oriented. And I try to explain some of this stuff to him, and it's like there's no other explanation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you manifest something that is, I mean, I think that's part of it too, is that it's a personal experience. You can really kind of validate these things through your own personal experiences. But when you go and, what's an example? I mean, at one point in time, I was a big music fan, and one of my new favorite bands at the time were coming to town, but you couldn't buy tickets. You could only win tickets through the radio station, right? You had to call in, and I mean, how hard is it to call into a radio station and win 2 tickets? Lines are usually busy, all these things. But I somehow manifested 14 tickets.
Holy cow.
To this event that you could not get tickets to. You couldn't get tickets to it. And so that was before I was even studying the law of attraction. It was a very crucial point in my, in my past, where I had kind of tapped into and leveraged this thing before I even knew about it. So by the time I go back and start learning about it, it's like, oh, I can look back at the experience through a totally different lens now. And it makes a lot more sense through this lens of law of attraction.
Yeah.
Because I had tickets. I just was just synchronized in alignment, and had set the energy so strong that tickets were just falling in my lap left and right. It was yeah.
I've also had an experience like that. Well, it's happened quite frequently, but usually it's just small things. But I said to my friend, I need to get a Gandalf pipe, and he said, "Okay, we'll go check a few stores." First store we go into, the store owner says, "Hey, do you want to buy it?" He said something like, I said to him, "I want to look at these pipes." And he said, "Oh, you want one of the Gandalf pipes?" And of course, after he said that, I had to get it. So it was just within the span of like 30 minutes or so, I managed to manifest a a Gandalf pipe from. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it's just
Mhm.
one of those uh, synchronicity experiences that I've had.
Yeah, I think that
Mm,
that's pretty common. I think that's typically how a lot of people
mm,
tend to experience it. Is there's
mm,
this kind of little thing like this can't quite be coincidence that just kind of
mm,
starts to just turn the gears a little bit
mm,
and makes you just kind of wonder. And yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer it's those
mm,
little experiences that kind of are the carrot that dangles in front of us that just leads us down the rabbit hole a
mm,
little further, right? To explore a little, what is going on here, because this is something's going on here. I experienced something, and maybe from the outside it might just look like coincidence, but I felt
mm.
something a little deeper happening. um so yeah, I think that's pretty common, and I think that
Ah,
leads us into that role of the seeker even, right?
yeah, yeah. It's I'm a very scientific minded person. I believe, and so I used to be like a hardline atheist back in my younger days, and I had to fight every battle I saw on the internet. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, like once in a while, these weird experiences would happen, and I just thought maybe there's something to it. And now uh, I just I don't really know what to believe now.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, from I like to say from my perspective,
Mm.
I think everyone is at where they're at in
Ah.
their spiritual journey, right?
Mm.
So I think that I personally believe in reincarnation, and to me,
Mm.
it makes a lot of sense. And let me explain
Mm.
why. If you have this spiritual system of souls taking body, taken, maybe they're newer to taking bodies in the physical realm, right? And so let's say someone's taken 10 bodies, their perceptions and experience and wisdom is going to be there, and just their vantage point is going to be very different than the person who's taken a
Mm.
thousand lifetimes. I mean, it's no different than the perspective of a 10-year-old compared to the perspective of a 60-year-old. Does it
Yeah.
make the 60-year-old better than the 10-year-old? No, the 60-year-old was the
No.
10-year-old, right?
Mm.
And so, I think everyone's at where they're at in their evolution. And I think that we're all, the end goal is just to back to that, concept we're talking about of the seeker. I think that there's in the DNA of who we are and what we are, is that internal drive, and the goal is growth and expansion. So
Mm.
there's a lot to be learned living the life of an atheist.
Ah.
Maybe 3 lifetimes ago you were
Mm.
part of the crusades and you were murdering people for your religion, right?
Hope not.
And so, or whatever, right? But yeah, so to have that
Mm.
experience, and now you're having this new experience of you know learning about being in the space of
Mm.
atheism. There's some deep stuff there, right? Just
Mm.
from if you are a soul, if we're going to assume that you're a soul having these different experiences, you're collecting some crazy data, man.
Mm.
You're really getting a quite the gamut of the experience of life, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just my personal belief. It's not
Mm.
something I necessarily teach, but to me, it makes a lot of sense. And whether it's this life or the next life, maybe, um, atheism can bloom into something else. But on atheism, I think an atheist is far closer to their own divinity, whether they believe in, a man in the sky or not, than
Mm.
someone who's a fundamentalist Christian who wants to, you know, pray the gay away, or whatever, you know,
Ah.
archaic thinking, um, riddled with fear that their religion, has them subscribe to.
I think it was my desire for seeking the truth that kind of took me down that path. Um, is- I had some things just didn't like add up when I was younger. I was raised in a Christian household, and I guess I still kind of believe in God. I'm not. I don't know. I believe something's out there, but just not really sure what it is. Um, and it's just kind of like I don't know where I'm going with this exactly, but it's been quite a journey, like just experiencing life and um, finding about finding out about things about the universe and different dimensions and everything. Mm,
Yeah, I think that's a healthy disposition to have about it.
mm,
Just being curious, you know.
mm,
You don't need to. Yeah, curiosity can lead you to some amazing places, I think.
mm,
And really, I mean, that to me, that's a testament to your character. I mean, so people are so many. It's so easy for us to get caught up in, you know, our beliefs define, you know, basically defining who we are, right? And it's our identity.
mm,
So, to me, I think it's, you know, a testament to one's character to be able to kind of have that flexibility to be able to get outside of themselves and consider different possibilities.
mm,
I think that's a great trait to have. But yeah, it's hard to not be rubbed the wrong way when you look at human history and how organized
mm.
religions have, you know, all the atrocities or at the name of, you know,
Oh
at the
yeah.
foot of organized religion. Like who wants to be associated with that? Um, and my, you know, my personal belief is that they've had their place in our
Mm,
evolution, you know, as a species over time. And I think it's pretty clear that people in power used organized religion to control masses and, you know,
mm,
maintain power and things like that. Um, and you know, a younger soul probably needs some level of dogma. I don't know. That's just maybe where
mm,
they're at um, in their journey. But I think it's also very clear that uh, certainly we need something more in the world. Um,
oh,
you know,
definitely. Yeah.
I just don't think that evolution, you know, to quote one of my heroes, Bill Hicks, I don't think evolution ended with opposable thumbs. So,
Mm,
you know, I think that we can strive for and expect more from ourselves collectively, right? I mean,
uh,
organized religion's not satisfying or scratching the itch that so many people are feeling, you know, in their spiritual lives. So I think there's a reason for that.
mm. um, what do you think it means to be spiritually aligned?
Ah, it's a great question. I love that
Mm,
question because I'm, you know, always trying to refine my answer to that and get
mm,
succinct so I can speak to my potential students. From one perspective, it's, you know, having the awareness that you are a spiritual being, right? I
mm,
mean, I think that there's levels to this. So I think if you're acting in accordance with this higher ideal or set of values, one can live a spiritual life, right?
uh,
You don't need to be a Buddhist, or you mean you could do it through Buddhism. You
mm,
don't need to be a Christian, but you could be a Christian.
mm,
But just I think even just through your own internal guidance system, having a set of values that you live your life through,
mm,
and are aiming, you know, have an aim that's um notable and worthy, and it's high enough to justify merit. um that in itself, I think, is being spiritually aligned. um Depending on your awareness, I think taking that a step further, um you know, what I teach is actual tools that would essentially, it's, you can call it a meditation, but tools to actually align the spirit with the body. So, you know, we have
mm,
these physical bodies. Many people are familiar with terms like the aura and the chakras and meridians. But there's still a lot of kind of mystery between, what they are and how they function and how is
Mm,
that relevant to me? So I think a deeper level of spiritual alignment is becoming consciously aware of ourselves as energetic beings and actually connecting
mm,
the energetic body, and bringing your spiritual energy into the body more so, um, and getting all the the meridians and the aura and the chakras all kind of in alignment. That's also, I would, an answer to that question.
mm,
Um, and then you could also look at it through, what's the trajectory of my life? Like, am I living in alignment with my purpose? And I think that, it kind of is more in the category of the first response. But yeah, I think there's multiple ways to answer that. And
mm,
and I think part of the nature of spirituality is getting accustomed with looking within and connecting within to your internal guidance system for answers, rather than authority figure like organized religion. I think that's the difference between religion and spirituality, is you're
mm.
looking in and, for your own, connecting to your own divinity, rather than looking outside of yourself for some.
Oh, I think we froze there for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Mm,
That might even be me.
um,
Need to get the girlfriend to upgrade the internet over here.
eh,
It's probably me.
um, what uh, I know you through the Facebook group. Is that part of a project, or is it its own project?
Yeah, so I man, it's taken me way longer than I would have liked or expected to get
Mm,
my school off the ground. And at one point in time, I think it's been about, geez, I think it's been 9 months at this point, or coming up on 9 months. I just decided, hey, I mean, I'm learning about these. I've had to learn all these things I wasn't expecting to have to learn, marketing and graphic design and
oh,
product design and all these things. And so through that path of learning and growing as an entrepreneur, and already kind of being comfortable with and in the Facebook ecosystem,
mm,
at some point I just got a hair at my butt and I was like, hey, you know what? I need to start to connect with the people who are going to resonate with my message. And so I just started a Facebook group, and I'm not really sure what it is yet. At the very least, I would like it to be, there's different. My Facebook group's called Activate. My for the most part, it's private, but anyone can join it.
mm,
Um, it's called Activated Empaths, and there's definitely different empath groups, right? So there's
mm,
empowering empaths, and all these different empath groups, which is great. But yeah, I think ideally it was designed to be, in one part, a safe place for people to kind of come to. And
mm,
you know I like to post funny things, but
mm,
an avenue to connect with and kind of start to teach people. And whether it's they're becoming students, I think that was also kind of part of the original picture, but I think that that's not going to be the case. I don't really,
mm,
um like, I feel weird about um trying to convert um people in this group into a paying customer. Like, there's something weird
mm,
about it to me. So I'm actually at this point focused on other means of customer acquisition. But um yeah, I still really like connecting with people in that space. I think a lot of
mm,
um they're kind of, and I could definitely relate to this too, loners. And in a world, they feel like they're living in this foreign land, man. I mean, if you're a sensitive spiritual being, in this case, on the older end of the spectrum from a soul perspective.
Mm.
Living in America or the Western world can be tough, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's hard relate to the fast food nation and superficialities that we all, you
Mm.
know, our culture is, you know, I would say it is where it is and it's great in many ways, but certainly reflective of a younger soul, collectively a younger soul kind of um archetype. I mean, as well as still riddled with and infested, in my opinion, not to get too conspiracy minded, but infested with um, and plagued with aspects of, you know, the dominance hierarchy of people who, you know, who run things, who are in power, right?
Mm.
And so we kind of live in a sick society from a certain perspective. And so I think the people who are, you know, the seekers and the soul searchers kind of need a place to hang out with people like them and
Mm.
not feel so crazy in such a chaotic world.
Yeah, it's definitely scary talking about this sort of stuff with um, people who aren't as experienced with it. Um, I've when I talk about it with my friends, I'm just have to slowly bring it in a little bit at a time and not like be like, oh, hey, I summoned a Gandalf pipe yesterday, and
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, I think it just that just goes back to everyone's at their level of awareness that they're at, and everyone's at in their journey where they're at, and you know, through a spiritual kind of lens, right? The awakening process. You know, I
mm,
think that, you know, some people say like, oh no, everyone's going to awaken. Like, well, what does that even mean? I
mm,
mean, even if someone's yeah, maybe not in this lifetime, but there's everyone's having their process of
mm.
uh, uh, spiritual evolution, and whether it's completely unconscious or slivers of conscious on that road, I think. And so yeah, some people just get these things, and other people are still trying to figure it out, and that's okay, you
Mm.
know. Maybe your conversation with your friend about the Gandalf pipe, maybe he's initially like, well, that's weird. That's my buddy's talking about some weird stuff. But for all
Mm.
you know, 6 months from now, that's an anchor point for an experience that he has. You know,
Ah,
he won't be able to feel so weird about it, and maybe he'll be able to, that door will be open to be able to talk to you about an experience he has. I mean, you just never know.
I think you're right about that because he's been kind of like a little bit excited about what the next manifestation might be, and we like talk about it a little bit and um, just kind of make jokes and not be so serious about it, and um, it's starting to. I think he's starting to come on board a little bit.
Yeah, that's amazing. And
Mm.
I would say that uh, something you said here, I think is really crucial. And
Mm.
I think it maybe is just coming from a place of intuition for you, maybe. But one thing that I teach that I think is very important is when you're starting to explore these kind of mysterious concepts
Mm.
and worlds and whatnot, um, how intuition flourishes and how, you know, manifestation happens with ease is when you're in that place of amusement and curiosity and lightheartedness.
Mm.
When you're all serious, that shit gets shut down. It
Yeah.
restricts the energy, right? And
Mm.
so once you begin to understand certain um, fundamental aspects or concepts with energy work, you learn really quick that being amused and keeping things light
Mm,
is, and not being so serious and um is kind of the antithesis to this stuff. And which is
mm,
hard. It's hard though, because most of us are used to operating from our analytical minds and taking
mm,
things apart, and it's more of a serious practice. We can get triggered into the implications of things, and it's this is also serious and real. Like, again, back to Bill Hicks, he had a great.
sorry, we froze again. I
Yeah, it's
missed
okay.
your.
I, I was asking, do you by chance know who Bill Hicks is?
Oh yeah, he's a legendary comedian. Hmm.
Yeah, so he
Mm,
had the bit. He had the bit about life being like a roller coaster, and
mm,
it's up and down and all around, and it's fun and exciting and
mm.
scary, and after a while, you begin to wonder, like, is this ride real? And
Ah,
he goes in and he says that there's people that have been on the ride for a long time, and they come back to us and they tell us, like, don't be scared, don't worry, everything ever, because everything's going to be okay. And he goes on to say, ha
mm,
ha ha, we kill those people, but the MLKs, the John Lennons. But
mm,
his point being was, there's people like, oh, like, this must be real, I've got a lot invested in this life, and
mm,
look at my furrows of worry. And I think what his message there was, in a lot of ways, was that as you become more aware of this physical reality we're living in not being the ultimate reality, and the more you do connect with those deeper spiritual parts of yourself and become more spiritually aware, the things that you used to be scared of and worry about, you realize you don't
mm.
need to worry, like, it's all good, you know and I think that that's the realm where spirit really thrives and works through us, is where we're, it's like Jesus. Even Jesus,
Ah,
enter the, what was it, enter the kingdom, be like children to enter the kingdom of heaven. Same
yeah.
thing. Same
Mm,
thing. So yeah, I would say good intuition on your part, just kind of exploring and not taking it too seriously.
ah. Um, yeah, it's also kind of interesting to me. Like, I just had this thought. If you approach a very scientific-minded person and say, everything's an illusion and so on, they'll go, oh yeah, okay. But if you say to them, we're living in a computer simulation and there's only a 1 in 10 billion chance we're real, they'll go, oh yeah, that's a really interesting point. And it's kind of the same thing, just approached in a different way.
That's a really good observation. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a hilarious observation, and yeah, I'm gonna have to remember that. Yeah, I mean, and it just
Mm,
speaks to where a person's at with their,
mm,
with their thinking, and nothing wrong with that. And in fact, you know, kind of cool that they can, when you change the words, that
mm.
they can be open to that kind of concept or possibility, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's quite a thing. uh,
There we are. We're back,
there we go.
and we're back, folks.
um,
Yeah, I think that the
yeah.
computer simulation concept is, I haven't really studied it extensively, but I
Mm,
find it very interesting because it definitely parallels, all the stuff that I've kind of read
mm,
through the spiritual lens, most of my life, right? And that, yeah, I mean, and back to science too, it does get really interesting. I mean, like, my teacher used to talk to me. We used to talk quantum physics, and
mm,
there's clearly a parallel and a relevancy between what we're learning through quantum mechanics and what mystics have been saying for millennia. So,
ah,
um, to me, it kind of just ties in with, it's really interesting. And so it kind of ties in with this whole, we're in a simulation theory,
I'm
right?
From my perspective, I'm not really overly concerned about it because if you're in a room with someone, are you really concerned that the room is real, or are you concerned with like how you're interacting with that person? It,
Right.
it it's For me, we're here and we should try and make this place as best the best possible place that we can make it. So like,
Yeah. We would agree on that. Yeah.
hmm,
I don't think it matters if you're a scientist or a
hmm,
monk. I think we can both agree that, hey,
hmm,
there's some utility and purpose behind trying to lessen suffering in the world
hmm,
and increase joy, peace, and happiness.
hmm,
You don't need to be spiritual, or it doesn't matter what your background is. I think that most people would agree on that. And you got the people who are the scientific minded, who are killing themselves trying to find breakthroughs for
hmm,
humanity through science, to better humanity through science. And you got people like me who are trying to have people heal themselves,
hmm.
to help transform the world that way. I mean, I think it's all relevant, right?
Oh, definitely.
As long as I think that that's the case with most humans. I mean, I think there are a lot of humans who are just kind of caught up in the eat. What
Hmm.
did Jim Carrey call it recently? The eat, work, sleep cycle.
Uh,
And that's maybe by design, that we're kind of, a lot of us are stuck in that. But with the disrupt things, I think people are seeing through that there's more than just
hmm.
chasing a career,
For sure.
getting
No.
someone
Hmm.
else rich off of your labor.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think we'd all agree on that, though.
Sorry, I gotta get going. Final word.
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
Um, Good question. You got me stumped. I would just say that I've really enjoyed speaking with you,
Oh, thank you.
and
You too.
I hope you keep up the good work with the podcasts. And I think there's a
Oh,
lot of people
thanks.
who, I mean, obviously podcasts are increasing greatly,
Hmm.
and I think there's, it seems like you're putting out good content. So
Oh, thanks.
keep up the good work, and I think that people need to hear this type of stuff, whether it's talking about spirituality, or in the next
Hmm.
show talking about simulation, or whatever.
Hmm.
I think it's all good stuff. So yeah, I just really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Yours as well. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff.
Yeah, cool.
All right. We'll catch you later.
All right.